With the NFL draft process now in full swing, in today's video, I wanted to go over the biggest draft needs for the Green Bay Packers ahead of this 2025 offseason, go over each position, why I believe it's a draft need, as well as take a look at some prospects that we could maybe hear their name called come draft night. Guys, if you happen to be a new viewer here and you want to stay in the loop with everything Green Bay Packers this offseason with a ton of different draft content here on this channel, I'd highly suggest going down and clicking the subscribe button below. Once we get our list of prospects, or at least some of my favorites, I'll start to do film breakdowns on those prospects as well and why they fit with the Green Bay Packers. So if that sort of thing does interest you, again, I'd highly suggest going down and clicking subscribe. Also, a quick reminder to go check out Sleeper. Use code BASS at sign up to get $55 in free entries. It's very easy to use and very easy to sign up. Use code BASS, link down in the description. Make a $5 play and that will net you $55 in free plays. There's still college basketball, still NBA basketball to make your picks on. Choose higher or lower for a multitude of different players across many different games on a specific stat that you like. Make your picks here on Sleeper. Use code BASS when signing up. Supporting the sponsor is, of course, supporting the channel. So again, massive shout out to Sleeper. Go check it out in the description below. All right, so without further ado, let's get back into the video. Today, we're going to go over the 4 biggest draft needs in terms of position for the Green Bay Packers. And let's get right into this. I don't have these in a particular order, but I did put number 1 as cornerback, and I do feel like this is the biggest need right now for the Green Bay Packers. And I say right now in quotations and air quotes because we don't know what's going to happen with Jaire Alexander. Are the Packers going to keep Jaire? He's under contract, but there's a lot of rumors going around that people don't think Jaire is going to be in the building come 2025 regular season. Now the Packers could trade him before the draft, during the draft, after the draft. But nonetheless, I still think cornerback is a need for the Green Bay Packers. They're going to be losing Eric Stokes in free agency, which I'm okay with. I don't think they should bring him back. We still have Carrington Valentine, who I think has a ton of potential. Keyshawn Nixon, who mainly played outside cornerback here in 2024, and I thought that was his best position since coming here to Green Bay. Then, of course, we also have Javon Bullard, who we drafted in this last draft in the second round, who kind of started playing safety, then transitioned into the nickel cornerback, but then had to play some safety due to injury. I think when we finally get him into one position, which I believe it should be nickel corner, he can succeed at that position. I know he had a rough 2024 from time to time, but he was stretched thin between a couple positions there. Still have high hopes for Javon Bullard. We also have Kalen King, our 7th round pick out of Penn State last season, who, shows some versatility. I think he kind of translates to a nickel corner as well. So that kind of moves me on to my next point. I think the Packers definitely need to go out and draft a couple cornerbacks in this draft class. Definitely one pure outside cornerback that can compete with Carrington Valentine, compete with Keyshawn Nixon, maybe another free agent the Packers bring in if they let go of Jaire Alexander. And then I think a second cornerback they should bring in maybe has a little bit of versatility, some inside-outside versatility, maybe played nickel for a couple years or a year ago, then played outside this past season. So I wanted to go and look at some prospects at cornerback for the Green Bay Packers so you guys can kind of get an idea of some of the names we're starting to hear and look at for the Green Bay Packers in this draft. So Travis Hunter, obviously off the board. Will Johnson's going to be off the board as well. After those two, we're going to start to see cornerback that are mocked to the Green Bay Packers, whether they trade up for someone like Benjamin Morrison or he falls to 23, which is definitely a possibility. Benjamin Morrison had the hip injury in 2024 with Notre Dame, had season-ending surgery, but definitely third on this list in terms of rankings, in terms of cornerbacks. The last season played in 6 games before that hip injury, had an awesome 6 games, allowed a quarterback rating of 58.4. In 2023, where he played in 12 games, had 3 interceptions, allowed a quarterback rating of 60.8. And as we see here, primarily an outside cornerback, 6 foot, 190 pounds of fits that Packers threshold, and I think could be a plug-and-play day one starter. So Benjamin Morrison's an option. Jahdae Barron, yeah, a lot of people love him. A lot of people don't like him because they think he transitions into a nickel corner at the NFL level or even a safety, which I understand why. We see the last 2 seasons, 2023, 2022, he played slot corner. This last season, though, he played mainly outside corner. He's also played some safety. I guess the main thing here is he has a lot of versatility, and I guess people's argument is don't we kind of already have that guy in Javon Bullard? We need a primary outside, man-to-man type of corner that can fit into our scheme well, which I understand that, but Jahdae Barron is an extremely talented athlete, so that's why I like him personally, and I think he can play outside corner at the NFL level. I think he can play, honestly, any of those positions, but he's 5'11", 200 pounds, so maybe a little bit shorter than the Packers maybe want for an outside cornerback, so potentially he's crossed off for that regard. Trey Amos is a corner from Ole Miss, who a lot of people like, 6'1", 190 pounds. This past season had 3 interceptions, 54.5 quarterback rating allowed, coverage grade 85.6, man coverage grade 75.4, zone coverage grade 78.9. All these players are potential picks at 23 for the Packers. We have Benjamin Morrison, Jahdae Barron, Trey Amos, even Siobhan Revell, who dealt with injury in 2024, but you see the talent there and the raw athleticism at 6'3", 193 pounds. He allowed a quarterback rating of 48.8, had 2 interceptions in just 3 games in 2024. Back in 2023, where he played 12 games, he still only allowed a 61.2 quarterback rating, good man coverage, good zone coverage, extremely low completion percentage allowed at 38.1. Again, that's only in 3 games, but you could see an outside cornerback, only had 1 full starting season, so you're buying into the potential of Revell, but it's definitely there. To round things up at cornerback, quickly going over a couple names that I really like. Darian Porter is one of them. Tall, rangy corner with a ton of speed, physical, great in zone coverage. Got to work on his man coverage, but a phenomenal zone cover corner. And the Packers played a lot of zone last year, 91.1, great coverage grade, and has to work in his run defense, of course, but only had 5 missed tackles, but allowed a quarterback rating of 4.7. Yeah, you heard that right, 4.7. Allowed 5 receptions in 202 coverage snaps. I mean, that is unreal. 3 interceptions there and an outside guy. Another corner I really like, or another 2 corners that kind of feel like Green Bay Packers picks, Maxwell Hairston and Azariah Thomas. Thomas has been flying up boards, and you see why at 50.2 quarterback rating this past season. Man coverage good, zone coverage good, excelled heavily at the Senior Bowl. He's tall and rangy, 6'2", 198 pounds. A couple other guys I like, Noel Williams out of California, really feels like a Packers style draft pick. Allowed a quarterback rating of 40.1 this last season with 7 interceptions, a true ball hawk, great in zone coverage, low completion percentage allowed at 47.7, and truly an outside cornerback. Did play some safety back in 2022, but Noel Williams really feels like a Packers pick. And you could also replace Juan Alexander with another from LSU, another corner I like, 6'2", 194 pounds, man coverage, 65.1, zone coverage, really good in zone, 80.1, very low completion percentage allowed at 43.5. Had 2 interceptions, allowed a quarterback rating of 53.2, and again, primarily played, or really only played, outside corner the past 3 seasons. I really expect the Packers to go and draft a cornerback early, whether that's the first round, the second round, or the third round. My best bet would be they would get one in either the first or the second. I would almost put a guarantee on that, so that's why I kind of wanted to list some of these names who I have targeted for the Green Bay Packers. The next position on this list is edge defender. I think we can all agree the Packers need to add some talent in that edge room, someone opposite Rashawn Gary. Now, they very well could do this in free agency or trade for someone, but today's video's focus is on the draft, so the Packers could very well go corner and edge with their first 2 picks, and this draft class is pretty heavy in edge. It's also very heavy in defensive line, which is also on this list. We'll get into that in a bit here. But as for edge, there's a ton of talent here. I think it's a make or break year for Lucas Van Ness. I still have hope in him, but it's definitely going to be a make or break year with a new coach in Covington. Rebrovich simply didn't cut it, and I think, our guys need to be coached better as well, and I hope that happens this year with Lucas Van Ness. Brenton Cox Jr. stepped up at the end of last season. He's someone to watch out for in 2025. Kingsley Enagbare, wildly inconsistent. Didn't get the production out of Rashawn Gary that we really wanted in 2024. The Packers were 16th in the NFL at pressure rate, or pressure percentage, 22.6%. But they were also 31st in blitzing, so they really didn't blitz at all. This last season, they really only rushed 4 a lot of the time, and that's why I think edge and defensive line are big needs for the Green Bay Packers. If you're going to rush 4, drop 7 a lot of the time, you need your 4 to be extremely talented, and you need a good rotation down there. You need a lot of guys that know how to get after the quarterback when it's 2nd and 9 or 3rd and long, right? You need Rashawn Gary out there. You need another guy out there that's a certified pass rusher. So that's why I believe edge rush is a big need for the Packers after selecting one at pick 13 was Lucas Van Ness 2 years ago, just after selecting one at pick 13. Now, some options. Mike Green is someone that a lot of people like. I see him going very early. I mean, 17 sack season last year at Marshall, 6'4", 250 pounds. I feel like he's going to go before the Packers. I don't like to say that so far out of the draft, and things can change and he could fall. But if he is available, I really like Mike Green. Shamar Stewart's another one that's interesting just because 6'6", 290 pounds, hand in the dirt, wide nine type of defensive end in a 4-3 system. If the Packers want to get heavier down low, which I think they should, right? We draft a lot of these guys as for a 3-4 scheme. Maybe they're a little lighter. Maybe they have the ability to cover a bit. I think the Packers should get heavier down on the defensive line, have more true power edge rushers, right? Run defense grade, 88.2. Run stop rate, 5.5%. Pass rush win rate percent, 12.4%. Just a ton of potential there with Shamar Stewart. We also have Jack Sawyer of Ohio State. Very intriguing player, very versatile player. 10 sacks this past season, 8 sacks the season before that. Nick Scouton, I mean, Texas A&M has two great edge rushers. They have a phenomenal defensive line coming out of this draft class. Nick Scouton is another one. 4 sacks this past season, 8 sacks the year before, 17.4% pass rush win rate. Also a heavier defensive end, 6'4", 285. I mean, Texas A&M, they've had a bunch of strong defensive linemen down there, and it worked very well for them. We also have Donovan Ezeraku, who's someone who I really like, and you see the connection with Jeff Hafley. He played under him for a couple of years, coming off a 14 sack season with a phenomenal pass rush grade, even a great run defense grade. A pass rush win rate of 18.2%, extremely high there. Also an extremely high run stop rate at 10.1%. 6'2", 247 pounds. So if the Packers want to stay more on that light side, that finesse speed rusher type of guy, Donovan Ezeraku is definitely an option there, because if Jeff Hafley coached him, it's going to be very easy for the Packers to decide, hey, is this guy on our draft board or off by what Jeff Hafley tells them. Landon Jackson's another intriguing one. A lot of heavier edge players in this draft, which I love because that's the direction I want the Packers to go. 6'7", 280 pounds, 7 sacks the past 2 seasons. Good pass rush win rate, great run stop rate. Another guy that I really like is Princely Uman-Mielen. There's a lot of edge rushers in this class, guys. So the Packers, they should be able to load up on this defensive line. Edge rusher and defensive line. Princely Uman-Mielen here, 11 sacks in 2024, 91.1 overall grade, 7 sacks the year prior. A pass rush win rate of 22.8% is insane. 6'4", 255. So there's options, right? If they want to stay around that 250 pound, 260 pound weight range, they can. And they could add one of those guys and a heavier guy, right? You can add Landon Jackson, Nick Scouton, Shamar Stewart, the heavier type of edge rushers. Another one that was brought to my attention was JT Tuimoloau. Thank you, Drew, for bringing this guy to my attention. 6'5" from Ohio State, played opposite Jack Sawyer, 269 pounds. So kind of in the middle of the two, right? Not so light, not crazy heavy, still 21 years old, an absurd amount of potential, and coming off a 15 sack season for Ohio State. Just go ahead and look up this guy's highlights on YouTube. I implore you to do that. This guy's insane. 87.3 run defense grade. Pass rush win rate, 12.4%. Surprised that's not higher considering he had 15 sacks. Run stop rate of 7.8%. And lastly, another guy I really like, I'm only really going down to PFF rank of 60. I mean, you can see how many guys in the top 60. There are so many quality edge rushers in this draft class, and that is Jordan Birch, getting a lot of ties with Green Bay here out of Oregon. Again, a heavier guy, 6'6", 295 pounds. You might be thinking, that's pretty much a defensive lineman, right? Well, this guy actually hit 21 miles per hour in a game last season. I'm not lying with that stat. This guy has some serious speed for the weight he's at. 81.3 pass rush grade, a pass rush win rate of 15.7%. Not the best against the run. You see the low run stop rate, the lower run defense grade, but 10 sack season. So although it looks like in terms of frame, like you're thinking defensive lineman, stop the run, right? 6'6", 295. This guy gets after the quarterback. So again, if the Packers want to get a little heavier, which for the 5th time, I want them to, Jordan Birch is a great option. Next on this list is wide receiver. Now, a lot of the talk this offseason has been, do the Packers go out and get a number 1 wide receiver in free agency or trade, right? You could trade for someone like Devontae Adams or DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp. You could go out and sign someone like T. Higgins or Chris Godwin. Those are all options. But if the Packers don't express those options, or even if they do, if they go out and get Devontae, he's only going to be here for a year or 2 max. You still should probably draft a guy that in the future is going to be your prototypical X receiver and your guy that can beat man coverage. Because a thing that the Packers struggled with heavily this past season was playing against man coverage defense. And now that Christian Watson's out, he was your leading receiver against man coverage. And I'll show you the stats here in a second because they are eye-opening. Christian Watson's out with a torn ACL. Won't be back for a minimum of week 12. So you're losing your best man-to-man beater wide receiver on a group that already wasn't good at beating man coverage. I want to quickly show you the stats here. I mean, it's crazy, right? So this is against scheme. This is stats against scheme. And this is against man coverage. Christian Watson was our leading receiver against man coverage with 277 yards and a touchdown. Then it drops way down to Romeo Doubs at 173. And then Jayden Reed, who was our leading receiver with 900 yards if you're including the postseason, only had 100 yards against man coverage. I feel like there were so many games where Jayden Reed was just completely erased out of the game. I'd be willing to bet that he had man coverage on him because 109 yards out of your 900 yards against man is crazy. Tay Wicks, 88 yards against man, 2 touchdowns. You know, it's still impressive to see the 2 touchdowns there. I think he can definitely beat man, and he's one of the better route runners in the league. So we do have a guy in Tay Wicks that I think can beat man coverage, but I think the Packers need to add another. And just to show you the difference, against zone, Jayden Reed, 742. Romeo Doubs, 241. Wicks, 357. Watson, 343. So actually Watson's 4th on this list against zone, but number 1 against man. Just furthermore showing you that we need a guy, or need to bring in a guy that can beat man coverage. So I have a pretty long list, and I'll go through them quickly, of wide receivers. Wide receivers, my favorite thing to break down. I love watching the tape, and I'll probably do a couple videos on some guys out of this list. It's my favorite tape to break down. So first you have Jack Beck out of TCU, 6'2", 215 pounds, coming off a 1,000-yard season. Outside receiver, mainly has some versatility, can play in the slot. Grade versus man coverage, 72.1. Contested catch rate, 65%. Then, of course, you have Jaden Higgins. Been talking about him a lot on this channel. He's my favorite in terms of a guy that you can plug right into an X receiver role, beat man coverage, 1v1 matchups, red zone. Coming off an 1,100-yard season, you know, mainly plays out wide, but has played some slot, you know, a little versatile there. Grade versus man coverage, 88.0. Contested catch rate, 58.3%. You also have Jalen Royals from Utah State, 6 foot, 205 pounds. We see coming off a 800-yard season, but had a 1,000-yard season back in 2023, mainly outside wide receiver. Grade versus man coverage, 77.5. Contested catch rate, 53.3%. Another one of my favorites, and if the Packers can get this guy in the 3rd round, definitely want to do a tape breakdown on at least Higgins, Trey Harris, and probably another. Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, 6'3", 210 pounds, coming off a 1,000-yard season. The prior 2 seasons before that, 900-plus yards. Grade versus man coverage, guys, 95.0. 95.0. 61.5 contested catch rate. Of course, a lot of these players are going to rise and fall. And, of course, when the combine and the 40-yard dash and all that, this will move a lot. But Trey Harris, one of my favorite guys in this class. We also have Pat Bryant from Illinois, 6'3", 200 pounds, grade versus man coverage, 83.5, contested catch rate, 69.2%, extremely low drop rate of 1.8%, coming off a 900-yard season, an outside receiver, 54 receptions. We also have Kyle Williams from Washington State, a little lighter than I think the Packers would want at an outside receiver, 6 foot, 186 pounds, but, you know, did play some slot this last season, but mainly outside, but could beat man coverage very consistently. 89.7 grade versus man coverage, contested catch 62.5, so plays bigger than his frame. Drop rate right around average 6.7%, coming off an 1,100, almost 1,200 yard season with Washington State. Then some real late round sleepers that I have my eyes on. Jackson Meeks from Syracuse, 6'2", 210 pounds, coming off a very impressive season after not playing much the prior 2 seasons. Really blew up in 2024 for a 1,000-yard season, 7 touchdowns. Outside receiver, 81.8 grade versus man coverage, contested catch rate of 60.0. The final sleeper I have and the final receiver on this list I have is Elijah Badger, receiver from Florida, 6'1", 192 pounds. We see the past 3 seasons, solid production. This last season, 800 yards, 700 yards, 800 yards, right? 4 touchdowns. Outside receiver in 2023 did play some slot. Didn't have a single drop in 2024. Grade versus man coverage, 89 man. These receivers in Florida knew how to beat man coverage, and that's including Xavier Restrepo, who is their slot. Maybe we need to bring whoever that receiver coach is onto our coaching staff. Contested catch rate, 68.8%. Yards per route run, 2.96. I mean, this guy is ranked 278 on PFF's big board. I think it should be much higher. Missed tackles, 11. Deep catches, 9. 0 drops. Average depth of target, 17.3. This guy was a man beater. One of my favorite sleepers in this draft for receiver. The last position of need in the draft for the Green Bay Packers, I already spoke on it, and it's defensive line. In this draft class, the strongest position in this entire draft class is defensive line. I've seen a lot of draft heads saying they had 12 starter-worthy grades for defensive linemen last year. They have 24 this year, so double what we saw last year. This defensive lineman class is absolutely loaded. And two of the names that are popping up heavily for Packers at 23, Walter Nolan and Kenneth Grant. It's kind of take your pick. I have Nolan slightly above, coming off a 6-sack season. Also great against the run, but a ton of pass rush prowess, 6'3", 305. And then, of course, Kenneth Grant coming off a 3-sack season, but also good against the run. Both of these guys have sky-high potential. Some other players I like that maybe could sneak into the first round, maybe a trade up at the top of the second. TJ Sanders from South Carolina, 6'4", 290, a little bit on the lighter side, but man, he can get after the quarterback, a 12.6 pass rush win rate. And maybe the Packers need to get more of a run-stuffing, gap-filling defensive lineman if they lose TJ Slayton. Kenny Clark had a down year in 2024. Devontae Wyatt, I think, has a ton of potential, and he should take off this next season. But, you can always add more guys to that defensive lineman room. 5 sacks the past 2 seasons. TJ Sanders, 6'4", 290. Again, more of a lighter defensive lineman there. Derek Harmon's a guy that's flying up boards, could even go in the first round out of Oregon. 6'5", 310 pounds. Oregon has a couple, great defensive linemen in this class. 17.6 pass rush win rate. Run stop rate, 7.1%. Coming off a 5-sack season. 6'5", 310. Derek Harmon's a guy that's flying up boards, and I think this is underrated. I think he could definitely go in the back end of the first. A couple sleepers I have coming out of this class at defensive line, which sleepers in this class of the defensive line would be like second, third rounders in last year's class. Simeon Barrow from Miami is one of them. 6'3", 290 pounds, coming off a 7-sack season. Great against the run, 84.0. Great rushing the passer, 11.3% pass rush win rate. And again, run stop rate, 7.8%. And the last one I have is CJ West out of Indiana, 6'2", 317 pounds. Terrific against the run, terrific against the run, 88.1 run defense grade, pass rush win rate of 10.2%, coming off, just a 1-sack season, 2 sacks the year before, more of a gap filler, run stopping defensive lineman with a 11.4 run stop rate, but has decent pass rush ability, and he's ranked 156 on the big board for PFF. So those are all the draft positions I see as biggest needs for the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Packers have other needs, right? If they need to get a center to replace Josh Myers, and if they don't bring back Josh Myers, that's a need. If they don't bring back Isaiah McDuffie and Eric Wilson, linebacker then somewhat becomes a need. But right now, as it sits, the projection of the roster, I think cornerback, edge, receiver, defensive line. Those are the 4 positions I have, biggest needs for the Packers going into this draft. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, just breaking down the Packers draft needs, going over some prospects to maybe have you learn some names, to do some more research, watch the highlights, watch the film, break them down and whatnot heading into this draft cycle. Again, I really appreciate you guys coming by to the channel. If you could leave a like down below, it supports the channel a ton. Really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Appreciate you guys coming by. I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.